The first time Mark noticed the fatigue, it didn't come crashing down like a storm. It slipped in quietly, like a slow leak in the battery of his life. There was no collapse, no fainting, just a steady erosion of energy that left him arriving early at rehearsals and leaving late, only to sit outside the studio with his hands on his knees, wondering when he had become the kind of man who tired out on a Tuesday. Mark had always been in motion, a man built of sets and stages, scripts and schedules, laughter in the kitchen, and countless little rituals that kept their family steady. Kelly moved around him like a warm current, part compass, part harbor. Together, they had survived the glare of press cycles and gossip columns, holding private griefs behind closed doors while presenting to the world a balance of comic rhythm and hard-won tenderness. Their home thrived on laughter, coffee, and the shorthand of two people who had mapped each other's every habit. So when Mark finally admitted to Kelly that something felt off, she listened in that way only love teaches you, with full attention, both grounding and terrifying. They sat across the kitchen island, morning light spilling over the butcher block. Mark tried to make a joke, like he always did, turning fear into humor, danger into something softer. Kelly's laughter was small at first, then steady, but soon her eyes hardened with quiet resolve. "You're going to get checked," she said simply. He hated how she could make decisions for him that he couldn't bring himself to make. But deep down, he knew she was right. He didn't want to keep running from the whisper that something might be wrong. The first tests came back uncertain, a worrying number here, a shadow there, and the doctors wanted more. The waiting rooms all looked the same. Outdated magazines, humming vending machines, and the low buzz of televisions no one watched. The specialist who finally sat across from him spoke with careful patience, as if every word might bruise. He explained possibilities, scans, and biopsies in the even tone of a man trained to deliver bad news gently. And when the diagnosis came, it arrived like weather, factual, emotionless, and yet cruel in its precision. They gave him a name for the thing that had been stealing his mornings. The word felt heavy in his mouth, a foreign weight, like swallowing a stone. It didn't define him, not in the way people imagine illness does. It didn't make him smaller or saintly, but it changed everything. Conversations once effortless now required care. The children's voices carried new shades of worry. The family calendar, once packed with ordinary routines, was rearranged with reverence. Kelly became both hurricane and haven. She learned the medical language like she used to memorize scripts, quickly, thoroughly, with fierce determination. She read research journals at midnight, filled notebooks with questions, and learned to ask doctors the things they didn't expect. But when the house was quiet and everyone asleep, she would simply sit beside him, no words, only the comfort of her presence. On nights when neither of them could sleep, she'd rest her hand on his chest, tracing the old tattoos she'd long memorized, as if mapping him anew. In those gestures was a quiet refusal. The illness would not isolate them. It would become part of their story, not the end of it. But the public world had its own rhythm. Rumor feeds on silence, and the couple had long practiced the art of guarding privacy in a world addicted to exposure. Now they had to decide how much truth to share.
Their agents and
when.
publicists offered tidy options, an official statement, a plea for privacy, a strategically timed reveal. But neither Mark nor Kelly wanted pity or headlines. They wanted honesty, not spectacle. Together they wrote a statement that read like a promise, to tell the truth where it could help others, to protect their children from rumor, and to use their platform with purpose. No drama, no spin, just the facts, offered with dignity. The announcement spread faster than they expected. Fans flooded them with messages of love. Strangers sent prayers. Headlines morphed, filtered, exaggerated. Their home became both a sanctuary and a spotlight. Cameras stayed back, but Mark and Kelly knew the conversation had shifted into spaces they'd never see. Early in the process, Mark found clarity. In his mind, he pictured an empty stage, a single light stretching his shadow across the boards. He thought of returning one day after treatment, or maybe choosing a new kind of stage altogether. The diagnosis had carved out a corridor of time where old certainties disappeared. He was learning to walk through it with grace and stubborn faith. Treatment wasn't cinematic, as the tabloids might have imagined. It was repetition, appointments marked on calendars, blood tests, infusions, days blurred into medical routines. Yet in that monotony, small bright moments glowed like embers. Kelly would bring him breakfast and stay beside him, reading aloud from old comedy sketches, favorite poems, anything to make the hospital room feel like their own. Laughter, even small, fragile laughter, became their survival. Their children met the news with a strange mix of fear and resilience. They were older now, their questions sharper, their hugs tighter. Life continued, school plays, soccer games, homework deadlines. Mark found comfort sitting under the sun on a folding chair, just watching them run. Friends showed up in waves of quiet support, actors with stories, colleagues offering to cover his shifts, friends who dropped off food without staying long. Behind the scenes, the entertainment world, often shark-edged, turned soft. People whispered prayers, shared tears, and tried to make each other laugh again. Hope and fear wove themselves together like thread. Some months, the scans showed progress. Other months, setbacks. Treatment stole things: hair, appetite, energy. Some mornings, Mark barely recognized the reflection in the mirror. But Kelly's face never changed. It was the same face that had loved him before, during, and beyond all of it. There were moments of anger, too. Anger at chance, at biology, at the unfairness of a body turning against itself. Sometimes he snapped at small things, a missed call, a careless headline. Kelly, always the fighter, turned anger into action, rearranging appointments, demanding clarity, or planning spontaneous family days despite the doctor's schedule. One afternoon, months into treatment, Mark sat on the porch with an old sketchbook. Drawing had always been his private release, a way to translate emotion into line and shadow. He began to draw again. Kelly laughing at breakfast, their kids as cartoon figures, wide-eyed and fast-moving. Their house, a fortress, but one with glass walls, open to light, open to love. That night the family gathered for a movie. Kelly curled against him, head on his shoulder, her breathing steady and sure. And in that moment, Mark realized something unexpected. The diagnosis had given them a strange kind of gift. Time had slowed down. Everything ordinary, coffee cups, shared glances, sunlight through curtains, had become holy. The world outside could spin with headlines and speculation, but inside their home, life had never been clearer, never more sacred.